Deep in the heart of an ancient woodland, amongst the rolling hills and tapestry of lush green meadows, under the soothing sway of towering trees, lives a secretive and mysterious animal that captured my heart from the moment I first saw it. Each and every spring, my heart yearns to return to this animal, nestled within sweet bluebells with such enticement, beauty, and mastery of an underground world we are so unfamiliar of. It is, of course, the beautifully bewitching European badger. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are joining for the first time, then my name is Rachel Bigsby and I am a wildlife photographer. Now, since so many people have never seen a European badger and so many wildlife photographers long to photograph one, I thought that I would bring you along to a typical bluebell season here in the UK and share with you everything that you will possibly ever need to know about photographing European badgers. I've been working with European badgers for 6 years now, and during that time I've had the privilege of many solo encounters, but also I've had the privilege of connecting global audiences with the species by filming and photographing for Sir David Attenborough's Wild Isles, for various BBC programmes, and for Badger Trust, the leading voice for badgers in England and in Wales. Now, during these magic moments with European badgers, I've had the opportunity to further develop my understanding and appreciation of them by learning and observing their biology, their ecology, and all about their mysterious and secretive lives. I'm now so passionate about badgers and very proud to be an ambassador for Badger Trust, further championing the species and introducing them to people just like you. Many people have sadly only ever seen the European badger dead at the side of a road, and this is not the legacy they deserve. So before we get started, I would love to introduce you to the European badger as I know it. The badger is one of the UK's most recognised and popular mammals, bringing pleasure to thousands of people as a living symbol of the British countryside. But their semi-nocturnal nature makes them rather elusive. Badgers are the most wonderful ecosystem engineers, meaning that they bring so many added benefits to the environment around them. They create new habitats for wildlife in the soil when excavating their chambers and tunnels, and they also disperse seeds in their dung, creating amazing areas of biodiversity in and around the badger sett. Badgers have so many cool facts about them though. For example, how they can eat up to 200 earthworms per night and how they can inflate their skin. They can also use delayed implantation when it comes to mating and giving birth to their cubs. And they can even change their bedding, dragging it out from under the ground, leaving it to air in the hot sunshine to kill off any pesky fleas. I've been so fortunate to photograph badgers for 6 years now, and time again I am asked for my top tips for those also wanting to photograph badgers. So I'm going to share my top 3 with you now. The first of which is to observe your badgers before you photograph them. Now there are 2 ways of doing this. You can either do this by installing camera traps around the badger set to survey the surroundings, to capture footage throughout the day and night, and to help you better understand the behaviours of your badgers, their tolerance levels, and any behavioural habits that will help you when it comes to photographing them. If you don't want to use camera traps, then you can simply just sit and observe the badgers. You can do this by remaining downwind of the badgers, ensuring that your scent is being carried away from the set with the wind, and of course wearing no strong scents, so no strong perfumes or deodorants. You need to make sure you're sitting in absolute silence at all times. This means no getting up and moving for a better perspective. You need to really decide on where you're going to sit at least half an hour to 45 minutes before you predict the badgers will emerge. Now my second tip for photographing badgers is to use a long lens where possible to reduce the risk of disturbances. Now badgers are highly secretive mammals. We are of course so lucky to have them living all around us. So it's really important that we protect them for generations to come. Now as wildlife photographers, we all have the best interests of our subject at heart. Of course, if we were to accidentally scare the badgers away, then we are never going to capture the shot that we so dream of. And this is why it's really important to be highly respectful of the badgers and to cause very minimal disturbance when you are in their home and working with them. And my third tip comes down to your camera settings. So I shoot exclusively with the Nikon Z9, the flagship mirrorless camera, which is an amazing camera to photograph wildlife, especially badgers, because of that silent shutter. Now working in a woodland and working with badgers, which are semi-nocturnal animals, means that you will be working in very low light conditions. And for this reason you need to be trying to use a very shallow depth of field. Depending on what lenses I use, I usually go for anything between f1.8 to f2.8 and up to f4. I try to keep my ISO as low as possible by doing this, and sometimes that means you need quite a slow shutter speed, meaning that you might need to use a tripod, because if you're photographing handheld at this low shutter speed, you might not get sharp enough images that you desire. I use the Benro tortoise tripod when working with badgers. The small size means that it's not too invasive, and it's the perfect height for those eye-level shots. It may be small, but it's incredibly sturdy and an invaluable tool in my camera bag. Now on my Instagram channel, I asked you to share with me any of your questions. Wow, that's a very close buzzard. Wow. That was a great addition. Anyway, on my Instagram channel, I asked you to share with me any of your questions about European badgers or also about photographing them. You sent me some amazing questions, so thank you so much. And I've chosen a few of the questions that I thought would be the most helpful for people following along and wanting to photograph badgers for themselves. The first of which was, are there any rules and laws when it comes to photographing badgers? And the answer is yes. In 1992, the Protection of Badgers Act was enforced. And this includes malicious acts of crime, for example, snaring, poisoning, or badger baiting. It also now includes cyber-enabled crime. And more importantly, for those of you listening and wanting to get yourself out to a badger sett, the Protection of Badgers Act also protects badgers from negligent crimes, in which a crime has been accidentally committed without malicious intent. So when you are photographing badgers or wanting to go and simply observe badgers, it's very, very important that you remember badgers and their setts are protected by law. And this goes for any disturbances to European badgers or any damage caused to their sett. Now, another really great question was, how do I balance up my shutter speed and my ISO when working with badgers? Now, of course, the badgers that do emerge within daylight hours are often emerging very, very close to dusk. And for this reason, the levels of light in and around the sett and the areas that you're photographing them can be significantly reduced. And with this in mind, I try to photograph with a very shallow depth of field. Now, the lenses that I'm using this season allow me to go to a depth of field of f1.8 and up to around f4. Now, this is a really great way to compensate for those low light levels, because using a shallow depth of field means that I can allow more light to enter my lens and my camera. However, if you have a lens that perhaps only reaches f5.6 or slightly larger, this is still fine. You might need to opt for a slower shutter speed, and to compensate for any shake or any out of focus or slightly soft images, I'd highly recommend that you use a tripod to keep your camera as stationary as possible when working with slow shutter speeds. Now, when it comes to ISO, I've been quite fortunate working at this badger sett that I'm shooting at around 2,000th of a second with my ISO capped at 4,000. Now, I know that modern cameras can handle really high ISO numbers, but I personally try to avoid it where possible and keep my camera capped at ISO 4000. However, if you are someone that's just really, really keen to get a shot of badgers and you don't necessarily mind how high your ISO goes, there is some really good noise reduction software that now you can use online to make your life a little bit easier. Now, a very, very important question that came through to me is, why aren't badgers protected in the UK? And what is the problem surrounding them? Now, badgers are protected by law in the UK, as are their setts, but unfortunately they are also killed by the law in the UK. Now, not only are badgers one of the most highly persecuted species of wildlife through badger crime like poisoning, badger baiting, snaring and shooting, but badgers are also one of the #1 species killed every single day on British roads. And as if this wasn't bad enough, the UK government has killed over 230,000 European badgers in the UK within the last 20 years, with no signs of slowing down. Now, this is harrowing, and it makes me feel sick to say it every single time that I do. And despite badgers being protected by law, they are still facing a very, very rapid extinction, with a localised extinction now taking place in some areas of England. So what can we do about it? First things first is, of course, to continue applying pressure to the UK government, calling for an immediate end to this murderous badger cull. And when it comes to badger crime, we really need to continue campaigning for better prosecution measures and better law enforcement. Now, a question that I'm sure you're all really, really keen to know is, how do you go about finding a badger sett to photograph? Now, this is the million-dollar question, of course. Now, finding a badger sett is very difficult to do intentionally, and most people come across them whilst they're out walking or looking for something else. But a good place to start is on the outskirts of woodland and the borders of farmland. And in urban areas, badgers can be found quite commonly now in gardens and communal areas. Now, when you're looking for signs of an active badger sett, what you're first and foremost looking for is fresh digging. But you could also come across a badger latrine, which is a toilet used at territorial boundaries and social markers. Now, other signs that you could look for include snuffle pits, and again these are very, very small pits and depressions in the soil caused by the badger's nose when they are going about their business, following those ancestral foraging paths every single evening. So now you know a little bit more about badgers, it's time to start looking for them. Each evening walk into the woodland felt like falling into Wonderland. For this project, I was photographing exclusively on the Nikon Z9 with 135 f1.8 Plena lens, and aiming for bokeh and whimsical images that portray the mysterious, elusive personalities of the badgers and capture their enchanting bluebell woodland setting. So I've just got seated at the badger sett. The weather conditions really aren't on my side. It has stopped raining for now, but I don't think there's any chance of getting nice light this evening. Also, the wind is going to be quite challenging because it's blowing in lots of different directions. When you're working with badgers, you really hope to place yourself downwind of the sett so your scent gets carried away. But of course, when the wind is blowing in lots of different directions, that makes things very, very difficult. So I'm going to see how that affects the badgers this evening. Of course, their welfare is always prioritised, so if it looks like my scent is too off-putting and it looks like it might be disturbing their natural foraging behaviours, I will remove myself from the sett when they are out of sight. But fingers crossed that won't have to happen. Hopefully the wind will calm down and all will be well. As each evening unfolded, life felt more and more like Wonderland. I don't know if they're picking up on camera, but they're up to fallow deer just behind me. It's like being in some sort of fairy tale this evening. The following day, I made my final visit to the badger sett. The evening began beautifully, with one badger emerging earlier than it had done all week. And then it got even better. So the badger is quite literally in front of me. Let me show you. It was the most extraordinary, unforgettable week, working so intimately again with these badgers, surrounded by the sweet smell of bluebells and the songs of woodland birds each and every evening. During this project, I really allowed myself to flow with creativity and explore new angles with a lens and focal length I've never used before, with the pure intention of photographing the badger's bluebell environment whilst capturing their mysterious nature. I've made everlasting memories, and I feel so grateful for yet another magical season with these magical animals. Well, that's it. It's with a very, very heavy heart that I'm leaving the badger set, and I'm so sad to leave. But it was such a good ending. You know, I have made so many amazing memories this week and captured some images that I am truly over the moon with. I'm so sad it's over. You wait a year for this week to come around and it's just over in a flash, and to be perfectly honest, it just makes me feel so scared for the future of badgers. I'm going to try not to get emotional while I say this, but it's pretty heartbreaking to think that the European badger could go extinct in my lifetime, and while the badgers at this location are safe for now, there's nothing to say that the UK government won't bring in a cold zone here next year, and these badgers that I've worked with for the last 6 years will be shot and killed. If you have 10 seconds today, please sign the petition in the bio to add some more pressure to our government to put an immediate end to the badger cull, because I can't imagine a life without badgers. It's been the most amazing week, and I really hope you all enjoy the photographs, but I can't help but leave here thinking, will I get another bluebell season with them next year? And sadly that's just so uncertain.